politics are local, and we've got to remember that. And some of the things that I've experienced over the 7 years I've been an elected official in this county is somehow or another, somewhere along the line, the elected officials, for the most part, and I'll exclude Jeannie Herman from this, but for the most part, these folks think you work for them.
Yeah.
They think that your property is their nest egg. They think your property is their piggy bank. If they got some wild scheme they want to try and fund, they try and figure out how to take more money of yours. That's why I ran for office initially. I ran as a tax protester. And I don't mean taxes as bad, but when they aren't equally assessed, and some people have to pay more than they should. I mean, that's what got me up, got my dander up initially. And I ran for office strictly out of self-defense. It was self-defense. I didn't see any other way to get it done. I didn't have enough money to hire a big law firm. I couldn't file massive lawsuits. I salute the folks up at Incline Village who had the money to do that. The folks at Incline Village, there were about 8,000 people up there that were all overtaxed. All of them. It started with 2 assessors ago. It doesn't matter what his name is, but 2 assessors ago, 18 people from Incline Village came into the assessor's office and said, "We think we're being overcharged." The assessor says, "I'm right and you're wrong." The DA at the time said, "The assessor's right and you're wrong. If you don't like it, sue us." So the people at Incline Village had enough money to do that. It started with 18 people. 18 people got together with their neighbors up there. You got about 8,000 people in it. Took them 16 years. We just settled it under my administration. We settled this tax, overtaxing. When you overtax somebody, I use another word, because these people were cheated, okay? Let's just call it what it is. These people cheated. There's been lawsuits that's been going on for 14, 15, 16, 17 years. Whoever you talk to, it's a long time. People have been born and have their driver's licenses by the time this thing got settled. So anyhow, it's 2 different lawsuits. The most recent one just got settled last year. The county still didn't want to settle it. The county has been wrong each and every time. This isn't Mike Clark's opinion. My opinion means virtually nothing other than my opinion. But when the state Supreme Court of Nevada says you've been overcharging these people, when the state Supreme Court has an opinion, their opinion is of value. I mean, you know, it's the end of the line. And the next step is the federal courts. But anyhow, the county, their idea was just fight and fight and fight and try and wear down the taxpayers. These folks fortunately had enough wherewithal and money behind them to fight the county. So we got this settled, but at the end of the day, how does this affect you and why is Mike telling you the story? The story is they overcharged these people $50 million in taxes. Okay, $50 million, everything I'm telling you is provable what I'm telling you, this isn't just some story. $50 million, okay, if I overcharge you 50 and I have to give you 50 back, it's a wash, right? Then we've got interest. Okay, and you're exactly right. There was another $50 million in penalties and interest. That was your money. That was my money. That was everybody in here, whether you own a house, whether you don't own a house, whether you rent, if your landlord pays property tax, if you live in a tent and you buy something at the store and you pay tax on it, everybody who lives in this county was overcharged $50 million because of the last 15 years, go back 15 years and see who's on the county commission, these people dug in their heels and fought this. That's what you have to deal with here. When you're dealing with people who are in the wrong, but they got deep pockets, and their deep pockets are backed up by your equity in your house, that's why they do this. So you need somebody in elected office who'll stand up for the people. I ran initially because I was being overtaxed. I'm gonna be a taxpayer a lot longer than I've been an elected official. I'm on the taxpayer side, always have been. I tried to get that issue settled for 7 years up at the lake and finally got it resolved. We got that thing resolved. When we had the Little Valley fire out here a couple of years ago, again, it was the state of Nevada with a controlled burn that the wind came up like it did kind of like last night and blew down into Franktown Road and wiped those houses out. These people went to bed at Thursday night and Friday morning they owned nothing. My office instantly went out there and took those properties off the tax rolls. We went out and reduced the land values, all those trees. I mean, when you're living in the forest, the value's in the trees. Well, if the trees are vaporized, what kind of value to have? We took property values that were $300,000 for 5 acres of woods and gave them $25,000 value instantly. So we settled that. We got the thing settled up at the lake. We got settled down at Little Valley Fire. Lemon Valley, everybody's aware of what took place out there. We instantly went out and took those properties off the taxes so that people weren't burdened and reduced the values. We did things, and I do things to help the people. We took that office that I used to deal with as a taxpayer, go in, and they treat you like they owed you a favor. I think now anybody will say that they go in the assessor's office, they treat you with respect, they answer your questions, and we'll take it right up the line to me, and I'll arbitrate these disputes. Everybody has a point of view. If somebody comes to us with a legitimate reason, I'll reduce their property values if we can justify doing that. In the past, it was the job of the assessor to balance the county's budget. 50% of the county's budget comes from property taxes. Okay. Wow. 50%. The rest comes from sales tax, licenses, fees, fines, every type of thing, but about 50% of that. And the folks that live in Incline, they pay about 10% of the county's property taxes from 8,000 homes up there. And that's the kind of numbers. So, you know, a lot of the folks that were in office at the time or working for the county at the time thought, well, they're rich people, heck with them. They got the money, they can afford it. My thought is, if anybody's cheated, we're all cheated. If anybody's taken advantage of, we're all taken advantage of. It's as simple as that. That's just the way I was brought up. And I've always advocated for the citizens. People have known me during the time, know that I haven't wavered one bit from the day I got the office till now. I'm not highfalutin. I don't look at this as a way to enrich myself. I look at this as a service.
Governor Clark.
We've got people in the office right now, and I just want to give you a background about what's taking place in the assessor's office. A real quick aside, you know, every day in a paper, once a week, the values have gone through the roof here. People can't afford to buy or live here. Just 3 years ago when I ran for office the last time, I exposed SJR 14, Senate Joint Resolution 14. The only person elected in the state who spoke out against it. It was going to raise your property taxes 100 to 200%. I spoke against that. Got a witness here that was there 3 years ago.
Yeah, worked against it too.
And so ever since that time, 3 years ago, the county has really put a target on my back. They do not like me. You know, the sitting county commissioner, chair of the county, accused me of not being a team player because I didn't back the county in this kind of thing. I told him I'm a team player. I'm just not on your team. I'm on the taxpayers' team. I want to make sure people are treated fairly. Jeff, I first ran into Jeff when I got into office. Jeff with his Nevada Taxpayer Revolt. Jeff did his research and found out the gas tax in this county. Everybody, how much money we lose with gas tax, because we have some of the highest gas tax in the state. I live only 8 miles away from Carson City. I never buy gas in this county. I always find a reason to be in Carson City. Jeff also pointed out how much more extra money those other counties got because we lost. And so that they lose money. The county raises this tax, people flee and go somewhere else and buy their gas somewhere else, and then the county loses even more money. So then they have to raise taxes somewhere else, so you get spanked any way you look at it. Jeff also pointed out, and you know, he's a school board person now, not necessarily a tax person in a position to rule on any of this stuff, but he pointed out about automobile sales. Automobile sales.
Take all mine out of here.
So people go where they're treated properly. When you overtax people, they move and they find another way to get it done. And so that's part of what I'm looking at. If I'm successful in becoming a county commissioner here, one of the first things I want to do is repeal or reduce this gas tax. I want to work on that. Nobody's talked about that. It's an easy fix. It's an easy fix because that thing continues to grow by itself. It's an evergreen kind of a tax. It'll grow every year, whether you say yes or no. So the county commissioners don't give two hoots about you paying 50 cents a gallon more for gas here in this county than you do in the next county. That's not right. And I don't think it's right. And so those are the things that I'm looking at. We need to have, this county needs to have an audit to find out what the heck's going on with this money. I just watched the county commissioners meeting just at the end of the year. We got $40 million worth of COVID money from the feds. The first thing they did was give 75% of it to the homeless camp. Okay? As an assessor, part of the job of the assessor, we have to list, map, count, measure everything of value in the county. Everything. So we know where all the lots are. We know where all the casinos are. We know where all the airplanes are, and that's not an easy feat. And yet I can't ever get an accurate number from anybody on what the number of the homeless are. What's the census of the homeless? Does anybody know? I hear a number between 3,000 and 4,000 for the whole county. So take that. I don't have a calculator here, but take that right now. And take the $30 million that they just gave to the homeless and divide it by, let's say, 4,000 people. It's doing the work for you right here. Let's see how much each homeless person could get. I think it's a couple $100,000 a person.
So why are we working?
Yeah, so my point is,
We could buy them a house.
Exactly.
what was the number?
My thing doesn't go up.
So let's say it's a few,
How much?
30 million by let's say 4,000. Let's say 4,000.
So 3 million by 400, right?
4,000.
30 million.
He's just trying to take it
Take
zero.
the zero.
Yeah.
I think that's my decimal.
If it's 3,000 people, it's $1,000 each.
It's 30 million.
But Mike,
But my point is, this kind of money is a one-time fix. This COVID money supposedly, maybe it's going to long, you know, if there ever is a one-time fix. But my point is, the county has never done a good job with just about anything that they manage. They don't do a good job with the homeless. It's just a never-ending pit. I mean, if we had $100,000 for each of the homeless people, we could buy them a house in some other city. Okay? My point again is the county, the city of Sparks. Every time you turn around, I've got internal memos showing that if the county could buy a toothbrush for $5, the city of Reno spent $50 on it. I mean, it's the goods and services. It never filters down to the homeless anyhow. That's mismanagement. You know, we need some oversight. Somebody who's in a position of power with this county that can object to this waste of your equity in your properties. Does that make sense to anybody?
Mike, can I say, it's not 30 million, it's 75 million. And they provided 600 beds for 75 million. According to that joint commission meeting they had with the commission and the two city governments.
But the information I had is they had 40 million and they gave 75% of that 40 million.
No, this was 75 million
No,
strictly
that's-
for the homeless thing.
Paul, he's talking about COVID relief money.
COVID.
The last batch of 40
Then-
million was just standalone.
Well, then this is,
75 was the cost of it.
then this on top of that, they got 75
When we
million.
get down to the
for
weeds,
that.
can we agree that it's too much?
Way too much.
Can we agree it's mismanaged?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about. These folks, again, I started my comment with, they're your employees. They work for you. They're using the equity that you have and the money that you generate to fund their harebrained ideas, okay? It doesn't make sense. You're the boss, so voting and that's what
What
we.
do you think about, are we looking for another housing bubble? Like an '08 bubble? My property value's doubled.
I don't think so. I'm a mortgage broker as well. I own a mortgage company. So everybody that qualifies now qualifies about 400% more than they did before the last
That's
bubble.
right.
The next thing that you think about, a bubble only happens if people are leveraged to the point where they can't afford it. The 51% of the sales in this county are cash.
California. Yeah.
And it's California, so it's the mismanagement of
No
California.
mortgage or anything hanging out there.
Yeah, so the people are fleeing California to come over here.
Yeah.
They're already infected with their liberal politics by the time they hit the border. Yeah, and so that's just my take on it. Question in the back.
Could you also call that embezzlement?
What's that?
Could you also call that embezzlement?
I'm gonna go with mismanagement. Incompetency. Go ahead.
And on top of all of that, we have the legislature trying to take the cap of the 3% raise in our taxes. They're trying to take that cap off all the time. You know, we've got to keep fighting.
Sure.
Never
So-
give up.
So at the end of the day, people have to realize, if I give everybody in here $1 million house, and the young folks need to hear this, if I give you $1 million house today, you don't own it. You don't pay your taxes for 3, 4, 5 years, and it goes to the county. So you don't own it. We're sharecroppers. Let's call it what it is. You know, sharecroppers at best. Okay, you don't own your property. And you get mismanagement in there, and they look at your property as their equity, and that's what it's like a homeowners association. Homeowners associations, when somebody in the homeowners association does something wrong, they use the equity of everybody else's property in there to hire attorneys and go after you. And you can't, one person can't fight 300 other homeowners. It just,
My area is 630.
okay. Yeah, so and it's the same with the county. We've got 5 county commissioners here in the county. They've divided the county by five ways. So on paper, that's a good idea. You've got checks and balances built in. But in this particular county, at this particular day, we've got 4 people who vote almost 100% of the time in lockstep. Jeannie Herman speaks out against and has a good track record on that. But the 4 other people vote in lockstep. I'll get to you in just a second. When they vote in lockstep, these people agree more than Siamese twins. I mean, it just doesn't happen. You can't agree that often. So we got one guy, the chairman of the county commission, who has co-opted the other members, and they're all beholden to him for favors, and so he gets their votes and he gives them favors. This man is controlling the county right now. The chairman of the county commission is in charge of $850 million budget. That means he gets to send out contracts to his friends, contracts to other people that are willing to give him campaign contributions and favors. And so that's how the game is played right now. There are 5 people, there should be checks and balances, but if you get 4 of them voting in lockstep, and the one person in charge has got the purse strings to control all the purchasing of the county, that's what's taking place. I'm an insider. I'm telling you what I see from underneath my nose, underneath the tent. I'm in there. They don't like me reporting this stuff, but that's what's going on with the county. And I don't mean to be doom and gloom, but we can fix this. Jeannie Herman needs to be reelected. I need to be elected to the county commission, the district that I'm in. I want to take on what I think, in my opinion, if anybody's recording this, one of the most corrupt people that ever run this county.
Right.
Okay? That's Bob Lucy. He's afraid of me. He's never been in a battle before. He had weak competition before. He knows I've got the dirt on him, and that's why he preemptively struck against me and got that restraining order and accused me of harassing him. Okay, I've got the reply to that right up here. Again, anything I ever tell you, I've got court papers on it, I've got records, I've got proof of it. So, my opinion, so what? When I've got court records showing something, that's, and then you decide. I'm not telling you how to think. I don't want to ever tell anybody how to think. I want people to look at these things and make their own decision. I'll read this real quick. Mr. Clark's alleged motivations with a lengthy speculation of what if Clark somehow is dangerous. Instead of the evidence as to whether the continuation of the order was appropriate, the court entertained unsupported speculative testimony as how alleged fearful Mr. Lucy and Miss Thomas were. They were fearful of me sending out public records. This case was about public records. Everything that I sent out was public record. Not one word, not one comma, not one period was penned by me. It was just information, public records, and I shared it with people. And the county commissioner, chairman of the county commissioner, because I sent that out, is now in therapy. He's in therapy, and that's his words in the transcripts from the kids. He's in therapy because Clark shared public records.
Has Clark revealed his dirt?
Well, it wasn't, no, I just amplified. It was already public record, but it came to me as when it came to me, I connected all the dots. Just by itself, this happened, that happened. But when you look at the sequence of events, that's when it became threatening to them. That's when it became threatening when somebody changes their name, their last name, a couple of years before they run for office.
That too.
So when somebody changes their name before they run for office, and then find out what their real name is, and then you Google them and you look at the real name, and you find out he and his mother were cheating investors in their real estate company. No wonder he wants to hide his name. His name was Lingenfelter before it was Lucy. So again, public records. Everything I'm telling you I can prove, I can share with anybody. I had a question over here.
Yes, as county commissioners, we have the power regarding the acquisition of voting machines. Would you support getting rid of the Dominion?
I would support having a complete overhaul of the voting. I would support firing the Registrar of Voters.
Yes.
I would support cleaning up that. You're exactly right. You hit the nail right on the head. That's the kind of power the county commissioners have. And we can't control what goes on in Washington, but by gosh, we can control what goes on here in Washoe County. And the sitting county commissioners can fire, demote, get rid of the Registrar of Voters. The county commissioners have the power to clean up the rolls. The county commissioners have that power and they won't use it. That's a big issue. I met with somebody at lunch yesterday and brought that up because they're doing the research on the number of properties. They asked me as the assessor, can we compare what's on Registrar of Voters and which ones are real properties and how come somebody has 30 or 40 names registered at 1234 Oak Street, and 1234 Oak Street's a bunch of sagebrush. So, yeah, that's the kind of stuff the county commissioners could clean up the voting rolls right here. If you ask Jeannie Herman, who I have a great amount of respect for, and she's very accessible, she'll tell you the night of the last election, 7 or 8 hard drives went missing right that night. Okay? I didn't find this out till about a year ago.
Hard drives for what?
The voting machine.
Voting machine.
Went missing that night. This is a county commissioner willing to say that. Why didn't everybody say, whoa, let's have a look at this? No, she's wacky, she doesn't know what she's talking about. So that was said. back in the back.
Do the county commissioners have the authority to block Sisolak's baby of mail-in voting for everybody?
I don't think so.
No, because it was passed.
Legislature.
I don't think they do.
Yeah,
But that being said, if we could clean up our voting rolls and really monitor and have poll watchers and people looking at that, that's how we clean this up.
That's right,
It's hard to cheat if I'm looking at you.
right.
They keep
I'd
you
like
out
to
of the
point one
room.
thing out. I
Sure.
was an observer in the counting room,
Uh-huh.
where they were also doing signature verifications, and I was sat facing the rear of the monitor that they were comparing against. I was there for 2 shifts and didn't see a single signature to compare against. So even though there are observers there, in our county, they are being constrained from being able to see what's really going on.
Right.
Okay, I submitted an affidavit for that to the Republican Party.
I don't know him, but I believe him because I've heard so many other stories. So back to you, yeah, the county commissioners have the ability to make sure that kind of nonsense doesn't happen. If a county commissioner was really concerned about the county, he'd be down there that night making sure that people like you get to see the machines, get a look at these signatures. So,
Well, and Mike, this is not just a recent activity, because Ralph McMullen worked at the polls.
sure.
And he got to witness numerous irregularities that were reported to his superiors and were ignored.
Ralph was,
So the fact that this has not been handled and that finally it's getting some attention makes me very happy, because it's finally getting some attention, because it's been ignored this entire time. Ever since Kyle Heller put in the voting machines, we've had problems.
Sequoia voting, yep.
Yeah, we've had problems.
so I've given out, I've got these handouts here, I don't know who took them, but this is, kind of explains what I mailed out and why the county came after me. Did anybody get this? Anybody want this?
I'd like to.
I'm gonna pass them out, if you could pass that out there for us. We usually send it around.
Is anybody running for your job?
Pardon me?
Is anybody running for?
There's a couple people running for the assessor's job. So, and
Anybody
again,
who'd like to give us a name?
so,
Yeah.
I will, but I want to get back to this voting. I mean, I'm an old school person. I say voting is one day, you walk in, you vote, and you get out of it. All right, so some people say, well, not everybody can get off work. Okay, I'll go as far as saying, let's make it every vote we have, make it a national holiday. So everybody gets out, they've got no excuse not to vote, get down there and vote. And I would be willing to pay that price versus the price we're paying for this kind of nonsense where we have, you know, I always thought early voting is even a pain to me, because you could find out something about a candidate 3 days before the election. If you voted 2 weeks ago, too bad, you're out of luck. So I always I always go in person, I wait for the day, I go in and vote. And now I'm finding out that might be enough. So, anyhow, back to your point. I have 1 day of voting and call it, and that would be it. And have a holiday, everybody gets the day off and you go vote, and then we'll see. And also, what's wrong with showing ID? Always show ID.
Absolutely.
Show ID, and you can't get on a plane, you can't do lots of things without an ID. And so show your ID. This is nonsense. People that don't drive can still get an ID from the state.
And it's free.
Yeah, it's free. Okay. So,
Mike,
yes.
I just got an email. The Office of the Secretary of State, this was dated December 30th, 2021. Notice of intent to act upon a regulation. They're going to have a public hearing on the 3rd day of February, and what they want to do is basically talk about let me just see, what they want to do is, in the state of Nevada, they're going to let people who are too sick to go to the polls and too sick to send in a mail-in ballot to use an electronic system that's reserved for uniformed military and overseas voters to request and return a ballot. there's a hearing coming for that, so if you wanna testify against that, you need to get on some email list so that you can get it and send in what you don't approve of this.
Well, Janine will probably send something out.
Okay, so that
to
just
her.
came out, they want, so if
Yeah.
you're too sick, then you can go,
We fought this before.
I know, but it's coming back up, so just wanted to bring that up to everybody.
Let's not do it in the
It's a
legislature.
bad idea, it doesn't stop them from bringing it up over and over and
That's
over.
right.
No, but it's not during the legislature.
But another thing that came out in this last election was the nursing homes, where they're going in and they're voting for all the people in the nursing homes. This came out in Wisconsin, the sheriff, he filed indictments, and I don't know what happened about that, but it's not just there, it's happening nationwide.
Yeah.
So, and the other, but we're the only civilized country that doesn't have government issued
ID.
picture ID, some of them with biometrics for all registered voters. So there's no excuse, we couldn't make it down to apply, or we couldn't afford it, or anything like that. Government issue, even Mexico has it.
Sure.
We're the
All
only
of
ones that
Europe.
don't.
All of Europe has voter ID.
Mexico would
Well, you get a social security card as soon as you're born, don't you?
Automatically, do they know?
I think they do. I think they issue it right off the bat.
They do their best.
They didn't do it the way when I was growing up, but you had to apply for it.
Yeah, you had to apply for
I
it.
think it first showed now. Any other questions, comments? This is kind of an informal talk. I just wanted to share with you my thoughts and what I think about and what I see, and hopefully you'll agree with me and help me with Lucy. This isn't going to be about money. You know, obviously I need some money for signs and that type of thing, and I'm not asking you for that. What I need is people's time. I need people's help. This is going to be about votes in that district. Lucy's got all kinds of people who are going to throw hundreds of thousands of dollars. The good news is, most of his supporters don't live in his district. So they can support him and they can do whatever they want to do and raise funds for him, but they can't vote for him. And so that's my game plan. In my district, District 2, there's about 26,000 Republicans. There's 20,000-ish Democrats, and there's about 26 or 27,000 independents. That's District 2. It runs from Highway 80 all the way down to Carson City on the east side of the county. And I live in Washoe Valley is where I live, at the extreme south end of that district. But I live in that district. I've lived in that district for the last 20 years, at least down in our area. We're the last ones to get anything. The roads are the last ones to get cleared. Anything that we need, we're the last to get it. Well, that's just a fact when you live out in the country, that's just the way it is. However, we don't want to be cheated. And that's what we feel we're doing. We're getting the short end of the deal and paying top dollar for it. It's just not, doesn't make sense.